Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for joining me today. I'm Brian McKinney from the Hemorrhoid Academy, and basically I'm going to jump into why most hemorrhoid treatments fail and what you can do about it. So a bit of background, I had pretty severe hemorrhoids and I was able to reverse them without the sort of traditional means. And that's not to say I didn't go through the traditional means to a certain point. Um, I did, and I started out like most people would do. I started using the creams, the suppositories actually, which I didn't enjoy and wouldn't recommend. I tried all the fibre, increased water, which later I found out actually dehydrates you more, and I can discuss that more in future videos. Uh, but I went through all the kind of normal things that you're told to do. You find out online in the first instance before you go and really deep dive into this stuff. Like, I did everything, and what I came to understand was none of these things really went to the root cause. They were all pretty superficial, and they were all about treating the symptoms. And the day it really changed for me was whenever my doctor had said, I got a letter through about, oh, you could potentially cancer, anal cancer, which was quite a shock because that hadn't been discussed before. And anyway, went through that. Turned out they were trying to fast track me a bit because it was so bad that they needed to get me through to see a surgeon. And it was really at that point, and I was doing a bit of research before there, but I said, look, I'd read about it. It was pretty scary, to be honest. I don't want to put anyone off surgery. It just wasn't for me. It could be for some people. But for me, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. The recovery, the surgery probably in itself isn't too bad, but the recovery is pretty epic. You're cutting down there, you're making, doing a bit of damage, and you still have to go to the toilet as well. So you've stools pushing out through cutaway tissue and all. It wasn't something, and plus with external hemorrhoids, there's so much, so many blood vessels and nerves there, so it's like a really tender area anyway. It was sore enough without someone cutting into it. So I basically decided I need to do everything to avoid surgery. So I went off like the deep end on this. Like, I went into absolutely everything you could imagine. Like I said before in other videos, I was trying everything. Like, I had a cabbage leaf in my, in and around my back passage to try cool these hemorrhoids. There was some research that cabbage has this effect, and it does, but it wasn't enough. Again, it was symptomatic. You're treating the symptoms. So to really go into detail of why, and the things I did to avoid surgery, I just need to go or talk a wee bit more about why most treatments fail here first. So as I've mentioned or alluded to, they only really treat the symptoms. So they're not going into the root cause. And what I found was, now this took forever, like this was months to try figure this out. And there's a few key things I discovered. Now, most treatments that everyone's doing, they're ignoring circulation, pressure, and inflammation. There'll be some things here and there that will pick up on it, because that's how I learned about it, but they're not doing it as kind of a unified system. And I've talked about it previously where I kind of view there to be one major root cause with then subcategories below that. For me, it was definitely pressure, mechanical pressure, but then that also compounded into needing to have better circulation, reduce inflammation as well. So these three things are why most treatments will fail, because they're not bringing everything together and having a full system approach to reversing this. Now, the other reason was a lot of when you're treating the symptoms, you're really only going to get temporary relief. The creams maybe that I used would have given me a bit of relief or whatever you could get on about your day, but it wasn't ever going to fix it. And some of the stuff I was using that had hydrogen cortisone in it, it can damage the tissue around there. So you're actually thinning the lining of an already very thin tissue. in round there. So, you know, you can actually exacerbate a problem that you didn't have, and you're making it worse. So that's one of the reasons why I was like, I really need to go into these real core practices of circulation, pressure, and inflammation to see if I can hit the root cause, or the main one, kind of like the first big domino. Then you hit that first big domino, everything starts to fall over and you can start to progress. Because it often comes back, and even with surgery, and that was one of the big things for me, you could do surgery and 6 months, 2 weeks, whatever later, you can regress and you can have hemorrhoids again. Because if your daily habits haven't changed and you haven't addressed whatever it is in your body, the inflammation, the reduced circulation, that's just going to manifest in the same way again. So it's really important to hit these root causes and really go hard on it. Now, just to break it down, to know exactly what hemorrhoids are and why I came to this conclusion, like they're simply, hemorrhoids are swollen veins. A lot of people describe them as varicose veins. You see a lot of people with them in their legs. So vein health is really important part of this. You know, because if your circulation is poor, especially in the lower extremities, you get blood pooling. So your circulation is poor, you get blood pooling, which, you know, goes into these hemorrhoidal sacs. And that'll also be, compiled with increased inflammation. And when tissue's inflamed, it can lose that elasticity, and then there's more pressure in there, and these sacs can bulge out, and it also happens internally, and they bleed a lot more, probably because there's stool passing by it, and maybe it's not as smooth, or some people have constipation, so it's a bit dried out. So there's a lot more inflammation in there. The external ones are sore because there's more kind of nerve endings and stuff there. So if you have chronic inflammation, which pretty much, if you have hemorrhoids, you have some degree of systemic inflammation in the body. Personally now, I view it as, I was lucky that I had hemorrhoids, because it made me make lifestyle changes to reduce that inflammation. Now, it can come from a variety of places: your diet, your sleep, stress, also infections. There's just loads of places that you can get inflammation from, and our environment now in 2025, it's increasing the amount of places that it can happen and that can stimulate your body to be in an inflammatory state. The biggest one's food, and we talk quite a bit about it, and Stephen you can look back and check out Stephen's video. He goes a lot into anti-inflammatory diet. Now, that can be the food you're eating, so adding in like omega-3s with fish and stuff like that, leafy greens, whatever it may be. And it can also be the supplements that you're adding in as well, like adaptogens, to help modulate that stress. And another aspect of your diet is removing the things that you know are inflammatory. So you're looking at your alcohol, you're looking at hyper-processed food, you know, McDonald's, all this kind of stuff. Just chips and seed oils and all the kind of stuff that we know is bad for us. Just reducing that slightly is going to make a massive impact to the inflammation the inflammation load that you're carrying. The goal is to kind of reduce that. Sleep, again, with our phones, the amount of time we spend on our phone in the evening, the blue light from it, that's also going to impact your stress and your inflammation. And stress and infections, again, stress comes from, you know, a variety of places. Like with working with endurance athletes, stress is a big thing, what I deal with, but I also need stress. So you need someone to be stressed in order for an adaptation to occur. You just don't want too much stress for them to tip over. And it can come from a variety of places. You can have relationship stress, heat stress, cold stress, not sleeping enough, work stress, relationship stress, kids doing your head in stress. It just comes from everywhere. And it's really, you can break it down into higher levels of cortisol. So super important to realize initially, I have chronic inflammation, and that's a thing that I need to really get on top of. And there is no cream, no witch hazel, no over-the-counter suppository or whatever that is gonna tackle that. Maybe it will take a bit of inflammation off at the site, but the chronic inflammation, the systemic inflammation throughout the body is just going to remain the same, and this is why you're going to get flare-ups. The other thing is if you tackle one of these, you'll notice that down here I've got like maybe 4 or 5 different things. If you do one, you might reverse it enough to be not symptomatic. But if you then tilt back into it, your stress goes up or your diet goes off a bit, you're gonna then just go back into being symptomatic again. So you can go through this kind of roller coaster cycle of hemorrhoids coming back and coming back, going away. Whereas what you really want to do is go, accept it, I've got hemorrhoids, they're really bad, I'm fed up with it, I need to tackle it from all different angles, coming at it from everywhere. Find the big first domino, knock it over, and then kick it into touch by going through all these other things. So as I've said here, like the real problem is system dysfunction, and it's coming from all the different angles, which I'm going to get into now. So poor circulation, mechanical pressure, and inflammation. Super, super, super important. And we teach all these things in the Hemorrhoid Academy. The first one there, for example, the pressure protocol. If you go into the description, there's a link, you can go and download that. Basically walks you through it. We've done a previous video that walks you through it in a lot more detail. But essentially what that's doing is helping you reduce pressure around the anal sphincter. And what I like about this method is that if we reduce pressure by using the anal dilation, we can also increase circulation. Because as you insert anal dilation butt plug, you're pushing on the pools, the little hemorrhoidal sacs. That's raising the blood, the pooled blood back into circulation. So you're increasing the circulation, but you're also, by doing that, reducing inflammation at the site. So it's like these steps are compounded on top of one another and working together, okay? So you go on to reduce inflammation. If you are doing the pressure reset and you're cutting out all the, the terrible food you're eating, now you're increasing circulation, inflammation is getting better because it's moving more through the circulation, and then you're cutting down the inflammation totally as a system in your body. So it's a fantastic way to do. Talking about videos there on how to improve your sleep. I have a lot of experience with this, working with elite athletes. Sleep is probably number one non-negotiable. I say that after staying up last night researching YouTube stuff and not feeling on top of my game today. But it's okay to have, say, acute times where you don't have good sleep. It's when it becomes chronic and maybe your sleep quality is reduced through alcohol, staying up too late, your phone, blue light, whatever, or over the long term you're cutting down the duration of your sleep. And everyone's different. You can get into your own kind of routine, but it's important to, I think probably one of the most important things is have a bedtime and have a time you get up at, because it gets you into the cycle and everything sort of aligns your circadian rhythm. I'll maybe get into circadian rhythm again because super important with sleep, and it helps the body, again, reduce inflammation. And if we have less inflammation, we're going to have less pressure in the anal sphincter, because again, with endurance athletes, when you're training the muscle, you are putting inflammation into it. And if you have a muscle under spasm, it's got inflammation, it's reduced circulation. And in order to do that, to release that, we have to reduce the pressure in that muscle. So you can do that through increasing the circulation to it by stretching, flexing the muscle under pressure. All these things are really intertwined. The other thing is the nervous system reset. I have a great video on that, goes into a lot of detail on how you can set yourself up to reset that, calm down the nervous system through box breathing, yogic principles. Also things like Kegels will help that, improve circulation as well. So you can see how these things are all intertwined. And then Stephen has a great video there on eliminating stress, or probably reducing stress. And that's something all of us can do. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, there's elements in your life that if you go through Stephen's protocol and the stress kind of blueprint, you can figure out where these stressors are coming from. Some of them you can't remove. Like, you can't just get rid of your kids, your toddler, your job. So there's certain things you can add in, like adaptogens through adaptogenic mushrooms or the likes of ashwagandha. These things can help just lower stress and also modulate that stress. Now, that's it, the finish of this one. We've got so much more information. If you follow the playlist, it'll take you through all the steps you need basically to reverse your hemorrhoids, internal and external. If you want, go to the description, click the link there, and we've got an in-depth review or a PDF file that will take you through the pressure protocol in a lot more detail. Any questions, anything you want to know from me, drop it in the description. Don't forget to subscribe because you'll get alerts for all the next videos. Okay, I'll see you soon.